Mark Forbes is an Australian documentary photographer. Forbes' work is recognised for its nostalgic and familiar feel, which comes from the way he captures what could essentially be described as mundane scenery. In an interview with Frames, Forbes was asked about his approach to his photography practice and what drives him to take the photos he takes. An interesting connection made in this interview is the relationship between our own memories and the photos we take, and how, as our memories fade as we begin to forget parts of our lives, the photos we have taken actually become the memories themselves. This concept allows us to understand why his photographs of ordinary scenery have such an emotional connection with the viewer. When talking about his most recent book, Collected Memories, Forbes tells Frames, "I wanted to photograph scenery that had a human connection there, even if there isn't a person in the frame." He describes how switching to film photography made him slow down, forcing him to approach scenes in a different manner, allowing more time to visually analyse the things around him. This is a fitting way to begin exploring the significance of photographing our everyday lives. Another great example of this form of photography is the work of Peter Mitchell. Mitchell is a photographer that has lived in and photographed Leeds for a large portion of his life. His 1979 exhibition, A New Refutation of the Viking 4 Space Mission, is a collection of images in Leeds of what he describes as dying buildings and the people associated with them. Being a pioneer of coloured documentary photography, he was often criticised for neglecting the use of black and white, which at the time was the norm for this form of photography. He often describes his choice of using colour by explaining that the world is coloured, and being that he photographs the world, it only makes sense that he does so.
And at that time, 1975, was just the moment, as I see it, maybe I'm wrong, but I see it as photographic energy and kind of discrimination, and the photograph as something that can exist on its own. So here was photographs standing in their own right, and mine were in colour, and nobody else at all was using colour. And I got a lot of criticism. It's documentary photography, so why is it in colour? You know, where's all that graininess? Where's that grittiness? Where's that political? I said, well, it's nothing like that. I just see these pictures and I take them.
Mitchell says in an interview with IKS, "When I take pictures, they are pictures that mean something to somebody." He then goes on to say, "They are always relevant to the time I'm doing it in, even though I don't always understand why." It becomes clear when hearing documentary photographers speak about their work that the purpose or intention behind taking these images aren't always clear in the moment. This is something I think that comes hand in hand with film photography, and more specifically documentary photography and photographing mundane subjects. The grittiness and nostalgic appearance of film, partnered with human and relatable imagery, gives these pictures context ahead of time, often only fully making sense after 5, 10, 20 years have passed. Craig Atkinson, the owner of Cafe Royal Books, speaks about this effect in his interview with Martin Parr.
I mean, I tend to publish at the moment 1960 to 2005-ish. But I think as our time moves on, the 2005 will move on. So I'll always publish sort of 15 years ago. So there's always going to be more work coming.
And why do you have this gap between publishing and things being taken?
Because I think it's a weird thing, I suppose, but I think because we're living now, things kind of become a bit more, not valuable, but something changes with a decade or so. When you look back at something, when you kind of don't know it and take it for granted anymore, and you look back at it, there's something there that kind of reconnects you, or it becomes more important, or I don't know exactly what it is.
This emotional connection that you feel when looking at photography from the past is something that can be observed in the Cafe Royal publications. Atkinson said in this interview that, "I want the books to be a true account of then and the time." This appreciation for photojournalism and documenting our past is reciprocated by its large audience. Since their first release in 2005, Cafe Royal Books have published a new zine almost every week, and in 2022 were delivered the Royal Photographic Society's Award for Photographic Publishing. The fact that this company is so successful and loved by so many, be it by the photography industry or our nation in general, is a testament to the importance and value of documenting our country, our lives and our environment, and the way these change over time. For these reasons, I too value the act of photographing behind the curtain and capturing our world as it is, for if it's not important now, it certainly will be in the future.